Hello and welcome to the Lone Star Varsity High School Football Wrap-Up Show. I'm Phil Torino, and as always, we definitely appreciate you joining us pretty late on Friday evenings. We have a lot to cover tonight, so get your popcorn ready. No salt, no butter. Just to introduce the team tonight, as I mentioned, I'm Phil Torino, Krista Pirtle behind the glass. Not really behind the glass, right here, just working the iPad. Mark Rogers is here. Mike Labar is in the building as well, doing a great job with all of our stats. Brian Navarrete is actually live from Stripes right now. He's going to be calling in remote. He'll be able to tell us what the public thinks of some of the results tonight. All right, Brian is not actually at Stripes, though we have considered it. In our editorial meeting this morning, we debated sending Brian to Stripes, but we went against it, possibly next week. Carlos Silva is also in the building. We're going to hear a bit from the Abilene-Cooper game. That's actually, Carlos, probably a pretty good place to start. How did that go tonight?
Well, the biggest key was just fourth down conversions. Lubbock-Cooper was 2 for 2, and then the one fourth down conversion that really counted for Abilene-Cooper was at the end of the game. There was about 3 seconds left, 4th and 10 from about the 15-yard line. And Austin Smith threw obviously a prayer up just to see if they could get a touchdown because they were down 28-20 at that point. But it was knocked down, I believe, by A.J. Perez, a cornerback for Lubbock-Cooper. And after that, it was just mayhem. I mean, the crowd stormed the field. It was like one of those big unranked teams upsetting like a huge obviously favorite team, if you will, and it was just one of those great games that Lubbock-Cooper just kind of stayed in there. Obviously, Abilene-Cooper had some great athletes, Anderson being one of them. Obviously, Austin Smith, a very good quarterback in his own right. They had some other good runners as well, but Lubbock-Cooper just kind of kept churning and churning. Their defense eventually turned things around, even though they were down 17-7 at half. The biggest key, Max Catwinkle, the head coach for Lubbock-Cooper, told me was getting that first stop against Abilene-Cooper on their first drive in the third quarter, and he thought that's when the momentum kind of turned, and then that's when they were able to get that fourth down conversion later on, and then they were able to get the 21-20 lead, and then they were able to cement it with the play-action pass from Daggy to Garrett Jenkins, who I know you're very high on. He had a very good game, 121 yards, I believe, and 3 touchdown catches.
Garrett Jenkins, running back there for the Pirates. He actually played 6-man football at Kingdom Prep last year. I thought he's had a very strong impact. Two questions here. Did Josh Quinton, the linebacker for Cooper, play? And did Seth Watts play, the running back number 20 for Cooper?
Seth Watts played, but sparingly. He had a couple of runs. I believe he had, 2 carries for 5 yards. He also had 2 catches, for 10 yards. Obviously, he still was maybe getting back from the injury he had against Plainview. I know we kind of mentioned it was a lower leg injury. Prior to the game, I had noticed that he was kind of on the bike a little bit, trying to get himself warmed up, keep it warm. Quinton, I heard his name mentioned a few times by the announcer. I wasn't focused on him, unfortunately. I was kind of focused on Jarrett Daggy and Ty Thomas and Kirby Vincent, who were some very good players and obviously had some huge impacts in that game defensively.
Did Ty Thomas play offense?
Ty Thomas did play offense. He had 1 catch, I believe. Let me see here. I do not have that right now.
So there you have it from Carlos Silva on Lubbock-Cooper's 28-20 win over Abilene-Cooper. This is a really big result in the 4-5A landscape. We're going to hear from Brian Navarrete in a second just about the Friendship and Coronado game that's in 2-6A. Just want to say quickly, some of the highlights that you're seeing, those are courtesy of Fox 34. Lone Star Varsity is going to be partnering with Fox 34 moving forward to get some highlights from the excellent job that they do there. And of course, we've also already been partnering with Raymar to discuss the Lone Star Varsity High School football poll each week on both television and radio. If you have questions, you can ask us. So Krista, if you get something from the public, can you alert me right away?
I'm alerting you right away right now.
All right, I'm ready.
I'll just let you clarify this. Someone has a question if we do anything on football in the DFW area.
We do not. We publish the scores from all around the state, but as far as our game coverage in the DFW area, no, because that's outside of our readership. But in the playoffs, there are, of course, times that Metroplex teams, particularly in the lower classes, might see some of our teams. But generally, we do not staff those games on a weekly basis. Let's talk Friendship Coronado.
Simply put, Coronado can't stop Friendship's run game. Friendship used that to get ahead real early. They led 37 at the end of the first half. Ronald Awatt finally went off for 233 yards, I believe, on 29 carries. That's his first time breaking 200 this season, as well as a touchdown. There were a few more that he could have gotten, but kind of taken away from him. I think do we have a question?
We do. It's back to Lubbock Cooper.
Okay.
How far do you think they go in the playoffs?
Look, I think the 5A landscape is very, very challenging. I think you have to look no further than how Cooper panned out last year. That was an outstanding team, I thought, and it ends up, in the area around losing to El Paso Eastlake. It's hard to project. I'd like to see, some of the matchups. I think what I've seen so far, first round game against Dumas. Moving forward, I think 3 rounds is reasonable. I think anything over than that would be super, super impressive. But if I'm betting, I think the 3-round, ballpark is reasonable. And if there's anything you guys want to add on that.
Just to curtail on what you were talking about, they obviously have a talented team. Jared Dagey, a junior. Seth Watts, if he's able to get healthy, they have the bye week, so they have that ahead of them. They have the ability to get some injured players a little bit healthier. Kirby Vincent, Ty Thomas, obviously some big defensive players for them. A.J. Parrish stepping up a little bit later in that game as well, as I mentioned, to make some game-saving plays at times, and almost even had a pick six at one point. So if they can keep the game close, I think there's certainly a chance for them to make some noise in the playoffs. But it's like you said, when you get to the playoffs, it's a much different animal. And not only that, but when you consider the fact that in their second year of being in 5A, they finally won an outright district title, there's going to be a little bit of, learning lessons, if you will, or just kind of some growing pains. But certainly they've got the talent. And not only that, but the talent is young, so they're going to get experience as well at that level.
Let's go to Mike LeBar now. Some stats. What do you have tonight, Mike?
Well, first off, we have a new passing leader with Danny Campos with 2,966 yards. Nick Gerber stays at 2,922 yards because they did not play this week. And Campos now has 38 passing touchdowns on the season. That's 12 more than the next leader. Cooper Ogle is leading rushing yards with 1,904 yards. Brant Schilling is right behind with 1,876. Cooper Ogle has 31 rushing touchdowns, while Schilling has 27.
So Campos had 3 tonight?
That is correct.
What about, did he rush for any?
I believe I think I saw online that he rushed for 1, but I cannot confirm that right now.
So he came in 40 combined tonight, so that would put him at 43, 44.
Yes, that appears so.
Okay. I think tonight, from Corey Kyle, speaking of stats, that the performance he had tonight, 22 carries from the ballpark of 230 or whatever it is going to help him out a little bit too. What's going on, Krista?
People want to know some Tristan Kennard stats.
Anything pertinent, Brian, off the top of your head? I don't know if your box made the print edition, but
163 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. No, wait. It was, I believe it might have been 3 passing touchdowns, actually. He had one to Jordan Madden that went 80 yards. It was kind of a response.
What do you think?
During the game, you could definitely tell that there was that heat between both teams. They were both just trying to get the better of each other. But at the end, they were all friends, hugging each other, talking about the game. Saw a few players walking up to each other, some star players on both sides of the ball, just, congratulating each other in the game. But it didn't really play a factor into the game as far as, I didn't see any signs or anything that was too terrible.
Gotcha. Just an interesting, point I thought, because digital trash talk is a whole nother discussion, but it's something you can sort of track, and it's kind of interesting, I suppose.
There was 2 weeks ago, Monterey Coronado, an interesting sign that said Monterey wears, what was it? Monterey wears, I I wish I could remember this, khakis or something like that. And the relevance was that khakis are just not very fashionable or something.
Krista?
Someone wants to know an injury status on Chris Contreras.
Chris Contreras is good. I spoke with him after the game. When I say good, here's what happened. First play of the game, now this was a 56-14 win, Shallowwater over Brownfield. With this game, it wraps up a district title. And to me, really proved its dominance in district because Brownfield was undefeated coming in. With Chris Contreras, he is a senior quarterback for Shallowwater. He came under center on the first play of the game. This is an odd look for Shallowwater. It doesn't often display that. Drops back and throws a deep pass to Rand Johnson, which was incomplete. When everyone sort of turns back to the middle of the field to see the team set up for the next play, he was sprawled out. He had been hit by one of the Cubs' defensive ends. He had an injury to his midsection. After the game, he didn't say it was his ribs. He sort of said it was like under his ribs. That's how he described it to me. He was probably going to get it checked out, but he was walking. He played the rest of the game and did well running, so it wasn't anything immediate. He thought he got the wind knocked out of him, at first, but when he got to the sideline, started walking around, they wrapped him up, and he played the rest of the game. So that's the injury report for Chris Contreras. Just some thoughts on this game quickly. When taking a look at Shallowwater, I was concerned this entire year with how it would be without a really legitimate, passing threat downfield. You saw Preston Scaff, be that for the Shallowwater team last year. With his departure, he since walked on to Texas Tech. I didn't know, where the next great receiving target would come from. There really isn't one, but it hasn't debilitated this team right now. It rushes 59 times tonight for 361 yards, and it looked absolutely dominant over Brownfield. I thought the Cubs were going to keep this game much, much, much more competitive. But look, for as tremendous as Jalen Nolan has been, what I wrote inside my story, is that I didn't feel the Cubs, really had seen some excellent defenses like the caliber of a state semifinalist. Nolan's first 9 passes were incomplete. He finishes with 3 interceptions. Brownfield dropped a lot of passes too. It wasn't a very good effort from this team overall. There was a lot of chippiness, particularly from the Cubs, a lot of penalties for unsportsmanlike play. Shallowwater had a lot of penalties as well, but those were more in the game, in terms of how they were lining up and when. So, anything else from the public yet, Krista?
Not yet.
Guys, anything else before I go over the scores that you wanted to just get in quickly, because we're going to move here towards wrapping up if we don't have any more questions?
I just want to mention something real quick on New Deal. They are now the scoring leader with 427 points, and they're actually the second scoring defense. So their point differential is 353 right now total. That is huge.
And Post too, right? Another shutout?
Yeah, Post another shutout, 4 straight shutouts, 16 straight quarters. They remained at 33, and as Carlos said earlier, that is 3.67 points allowed per game. If
Post gets another shutout next week, which would be, what would that be, 5 total for the year?
I don't think so. I think there's only been like 2 or 3 games they allowed points. I think it's been 4 straight shutouts, but I think they had like 1 or 2 shutouts earlier.
It's 6 presently.
6 out of 9 games.
6 out of 9 games.
Carlos. All right. If Post gets another shutout, here's another question quickly. If Post gets another shutout this upcoming week, do you think that defense is in the discussion for Player of the Year?
I don't know if I can really talk on that.
If not Player of the Year, maybe Player of the Week will reward the entire defensive unit.
I think it's too light though. I think that's underselling. I mean, how the game is played now. To me, I think that's absolutely remarkable.
I'm all for it. I would love to see the defense get Player of the Year.
Carlos, could we justify that?
It all depends on what you're kind of looking at, because as you mentioned, nowadays you're thinking of spread offenses, want to score a lot of points, and when you really kind of look at the team that Post is really throwing out there, they're not allowing teams to really do that, especially against some teams, as you mentioned. Some of them are very prolific offenses, and I'll even throw out another team that I used to cover. Mason is another team that is known for its defense. Now, I'm not very familiar with Post, but if they're a running team, obviously that's more conducive to helping their defense keep rested throughout the game. And not only that, but then they're controlling the clock and controlling the game, right, because if their defense is able to put that pressure on the opposing offense while they're running offense, that the Antelopes do run, is able to score points. That obviously is helping them as well because of, like I said, the rest, and not only that, but then you're putting pressure on the opposing offense to score, and then maybe that's even helping the defense make some big plays.
I think it's kind of just a compelling idea. It would be completely out of the box, but I kind of like stuff like that. I think having that many shutouts in the season is absurd.
Well, and not only that, but you have to really look at what is making those shutouts work. Is it the defensive line? Is it the coverage? I mean, obviously you can say the whole defense, but I'm sure there's something that really makes it work.
Right. Food for thought moving forward. Just some quick pertinent scores before we wrap up. And if you have any questions about any of the results from tonight, please ask them now.
What was the Slayton-Kermit score?
Let's see if we got that.
It looks like Slayton 147-34.
So Slayton 47, Kermit 34. That's another result in the same district as Brownfield and Shallowwater in Denver City. Just some results quickly as we wrap up. New Deal 66, Hale Center 6. So that's a pretty big result there. I think that pairs with Abernathy's win against Floydada 28-21 to wrap up the first two spots in that district with New Deal 1, Abernathy 2. That was a really tight game. I thought Floydada could do it, but really strong win there from Abernathy. Plains 21, Morton 20. I think that's probably Plains' first win of the season.
First win since, what did we figure, October 2013?
October 4th, 2013.
Yeah.
Wow. I will refrain from making an only joke.
Shut up, Phil.
As much as I'm tempted to do so. Sudan 30, Bavina 12, Cotton Center 53, Lasbuddy 0, Littlefield 49, Friona 0. This sets up a very interesting matchup next week, Muleshoe Littlefield at Muleshoe. That's one that we're going to try very hard to cover. Southland 50, Wilson 0, Crosbyton 42, Memphis 14, Idalou 49, Sanford Fritch 0. So Idalou once again continues to roll, still undefeated. Olton 30, Tahoka 6, Muleshoe 47, Dimmitt 6, Whitharrell 6, Wellman Union 18, Anton 72, Whiteface 22, and Quanah 32, Lockney 7. What do you got, Krista?
Do you think Shallowwater has the defense to make a deep playoff run?
Yeah, well, I think Shallowwater's defense is exceptional. To me, what would be prohibitive of the Mustangs making a very deep playoff run, what I would consider deep for a team of this caliber is probably past the third round, is can it be more expansive offensively? I think Cooper Ogle and Chris Contreras are outstanding players. They are remarkable, but I don't know that that'll be enough moving forward. Like, Brownfield's defense got worn out tonight, and it didn't have a great defense to begin with if you look closely at its results. I think, to me, it still has to be a little more expansive with the pass and stretch the field. I suppose if it has, a great running effort every single night, that won't be a concern, but eventually you're going to run up against a really excellent run-stopping team, and that'll be a concern. Anything else?
Not yet.
Cool. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up. This has been the Lone Star Varsity High School Football Postgame Show live on Periscope. Once again, thanks to Fox 34 for the highlights. We definitely appreciate that. Thanks to all of you for watching. For Mike, Brian, Carlos, Krista, and Mark, I'm Phil Torino. We'll see you next week.